Because I don't know if you heard Eric Lutzer's sermon many years ago, and he entitled his sermon, "It's Friday, but Sunday's coming." Easter message that he preached years ago. It's Friday, but Sunday's coming. And I thought this Palm Sunday, I'd like to put a special twist on the title and say it's Palm Sunday, but Friday's coming. It's Palm Sunday, but Friday is coming. We enjoy this day. I remember as a child and having in Sunday school, having all these palm branches things made and bringing them home from Sunday school and all that kind of stuff. It's a kind of a magical moment on this special day. But we all know what is going to be happening on this coming Friday. And by the way, I would encourage you to attend. We have a Good Friday service here, and I'd encourage you to be part of that service this Friday. But we know that it's Palm Sunday, but Friday's coming. It's a great celebratory procession that was taking place with Jesus riding into Jerusalem on a borrowed colt. We need to understand that some of these same people, by the way, that were shouting, "Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord," some of these same people just a few days later were crying out those words, "Crucify him, crucify him." Matthew 21, verses 1 to 11. Let's read those scriptures, those verses this morning as we remind ourselves of this story. It says, as they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage on the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent two disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and at once you will find a donkey tied there, with her colt by her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, say that the Lord needs them, and he will send them right away." This took place to fulfill what was spoken to the prophet. "Say to daughter Zion, see, your king comes to you, gentle and riding on a donkey, on a colt, on a foal of a donkey." The disciples went and did as Jesus had instructed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and placed their cloaks on them for Jesus to sit on. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds that went ahead of him and those that followed shouted, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest heaven!" When Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred and asked, "Who is this?" The crowds answered, "This is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth of Galilee." You know, when you read this story, it may sound that this is just something that, like, wow, what is going on here? But especially for those who've read it for the first time, is he about to be ushered into becoming the king, or what is going on? And many people in the crowd thought just that. He's coming in. They understood the prophecies. The Messiah was going to do this, ride on a colt. Perhaps he's about to become king. Our day is finally here. The Romans are finally going to be destroyed. And we are going to now have our kingdom back of Israel. But in that crowd, you had people that were following Jesus for many different reasons. And the first thing I want to say this morning, there are those who are chasing the hype. They chased the hype. They saw the processional. They thought, what's going on here? Some kind of parade? Now understand Jewish culture. The truth of the matter is that when the priests would actually go and select the lamb for the Passover, by the way, Passover is going on right now in Israel and in Jewish households. As they were selecting the lamb, they would have a procession of olive branches for the lamb being selected that was going to go on to be slaughtered for Israel. The chosen lamb on behalf of the people. And so it was a tradition to have these branches be part of what they're going to do during their Passover. But as they were doing this, their attention was distracted, and they saw this Jesus, and people began to say, "Who is that?" There is that Jesus. He is the Messiah. And suddenly their attention went away from the priests to Jesus. And some of these people in this audience were chasing hype. They heard about the popularity of this man, and they ran to him and followed him. Who here has ever followed fire trucks? Anyone here? A fire truck follower? You know, you see the siren. John is pointing to his wife. Yeah. Police car. Where are they going? Right. My wife's from a small community in Newfoundland, and every time that they had a community siren that would go off for the volunteer firemen to get to the fire station, to go to the scene, whatever scene that was, and the siren would echo through the whole community. Everyone knew that something was going on. A house was on fire or some kind of traumatic experience, and everyone was trying to find out what was happening. We're kind of creatures of habit that way, aren't we? Like, where's the action today? What's happening today? That's why they sell magazines called National Enquirer and that type of thing, because they want to know what the action is, what's the latest gossip going on. And it was no difference in Jesus' day. People saw Jesus coming into Jerusalem. They saw the crowds, and people were just drawn to the crowd. And some of them had absolutely no interest whatsoever, but they were just curious. It was no different than it is today. He was at that moment their superhero. He was the one that was going to be perhaps becoming their king, and they would be able to say, I was there when he came into Jerusalem and he started his kingdom. I was there. Oh, I remember that moment. Perhaps they were there for that particular reason. We all have superheroes. When I was a youth pastor, a band that was very popular was a Christian band called Tree 63. Who remembers Tree 63? Anybody remember Tree 63? Right on. It was a good band, and I still sing some of their music in my head once in a while, or I'll go on YouTube and play one of their songs. Really, they're from South Africa, very beautiful music, and rocky, but good music. So, but I was a youth pastor. We went to their concerts when they were in Winnipeg and had a great time. And just the other day, I saw online that they've rejoined. They come back together. They're going to go on tour again. And I texted my daughter Taylor, and I said, Taylor, the Tree 63 is back. And she's like, right on. She's all excited because she showed me a picture on her trip a few weeks ago. She was in the car, and she had her song selection, and she took a picture of her screen. It said Tree 63. I said, that's my girl. Listen to Tree 63. But we all have our sense of heroes, people that we like to listen to, and music we like to listen to, perhaps, heaven forbid, even movie stars you follow, that type of thing. But this time, when Jesus was entering into Jerusalem, it was no different. People were there for a variety of different reasons. They weren't all there for pure reasons. Some were, and yet others weren't. Look at John chapter 11, verses 55 to 77. Because you can see the behavior so very clearly in these verses. It says, when it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, many went up from the country to Jerusalem for their ceremonial cleansing before the Passover. They kept looking for Jesus. As they stood at the temple courts, they asked one another, what do you think? Isn't he coming to the festival at all? But the chief priests and the Pharisees had given orders that anyone who found out where Jesus was should report it so that they might arrest him. In these verses, we witness two types of people. Those who wanted to see Jesus, perhaps experience a miracle that they perhaps heard that he was performing. There were those types of people who believed that he might be this Messiah. But also in that crowd, we read that there were Pharisees who also wanted to see him. For a very dark reason. They wanted him arrested. They wanted him put down. He's causing the crowds to become restless. They want him to take over. And they did not like that. They wanted him stopped immediately. They all knew that Jesus was coming to Jerusalem for the Passover. He came every year, so he's bound to come this year. And they assumed, wrongly assumed, many of them, that he was going to come perhaps this time to finally become the king that they were so desperately looking for. In Luke's account of Jesus coming to Jerusalem on a colt, he describes these crowds as followers, these followers as disciples. Look at chapter 19, verses 37 to 40. He says, when he came near the place where the road goes down Mount Olives, the whole crowd of disciples. Now, we often